Alright, another response video to Andy. I'll keep my title of Intelligence Good, Psychology Fucktarded, because that's really what we're talking about here, and he's just not getting it. Yeah, so obviously he's not getting it from my perspective, and he's going to claim that I'm missing something from his perspective. But they're really, I think this is narrowed down. Sorry, my ears are so bad. Can't hear a thing. It just sucks. Damn, ear infection came back. There, a little better. So yeah, the argument's really about this. We can establish what we gain through intelligence and we gain as a psychology. And this word guilt he keeps using, he just keeps obsessing about it. It's made out of two ingredients, right, or even one ingredient, but it's awareness and a sense of accountability or responsibility. And that's what it's made out of. There's a line from the movie As Good as It Gets. And so a girl walks up to this author and says, how do you write women so well? Obviously he's very good at writing romance novels or whatever. And so his response to the woman is, I think of a man and remove reason and accountability. And that's all I'm saying you're doing here. You're just saying, I'm going to remove reason and accountability. These are the things that create guilt. So awareness and accountability are what creates guilt. And you're eliminating those and saying, I'm not going to play in that intelligent ballpark. So I can be unaccountable and happy. And the premises are all wrong. To reject reason and accountability as sources of good function is first idiotic, and to think that somehow there's well, he says it in this video, so I'm going to get to it over and over again because he says it more than once, that there's no difference in outcome. There is a difference in outcome. You keep claiming there's some sort of no dime's worth of difference kind of nonsense. No, there's more than a dime's worth of difference here at stake.
Gary, interesting response, judging me for my yes to the creation of...
Well, whatever. I'm not judging you. I'm judging the character of your explanation, and it was just glib and superficial. And so, yeah, that judgment wasn't very difficult to make. It was useless mush.
World inhabited by vaguely deficient human beings. People that are more deficient than us deficient human beings are.
Yeah, the whole biosphere, the whole thing. So a whole giant biosphere, a ton of animals eating each other all over the place, so a deformed, inferior version of the human race can live out its eventual death. Can just recycle through this stupid, preposterous idiocy to its inevitable destruction. I guess I should have put that as a clause in there, that it's only going to live for 200 more years, and that'll be the end. I mean, I don't know what conditions I have to put on things where you finally say, no, that's just plain too stupid. But yeah, your answer was nothing. You didn't respond to the issue as if there's an issue, and I just don't know. Again, I don't know how you can't see that there's a difference between having World War II and not having World War II. There's a difference between having penicillin and not having penicillin. The outcomes are different. It's just nonsense not to concede that.
Well, I'll put it this way. You miss it?
I mean, surely the outcomes between putting things at jeopardy and not putting things at jeopardy is certainly a difference. I mean, there's no way you can... I mean, you might argue that you can't tell the Democrat from the Republican, but no president would be very different than a president. And that's the fundamental argument here, is that there's no necessity for human beings to exist, no more necessity that they exist than the Red Sox win the World Series. It's just some delusion that some individuals have that says they somehow need it to exist. And that's the subject.
Understand the context of your own question, and I don't think that you actually understood that when you posed it to me.
Whatever. That's just another manipulative word game play. Everybody could just walk into a conversation and make that the premise. Well, I think it's just a nonsensical premise. I fully understood what I was saying.
Because what you said was, you're standing right now in front of a button. What do? Okay, I got to do something. I got to push it or not push it. Because if I push the button, something happens. If I don't push the button, something happens.
Yeah, okay, but the distinction is if you don't push the button, something happens that has a big pile of nothing in it. That's the difference, right? I mean, you can say something happens, but no, what happens is nothing happens. Nothing is put at risk. There's absolutely no money put in the gambling table. No money is put on any number. No roulette wheel spinning matters now. You've taken the money off the table. There's no gambling taking place. There's no risk at stake. There's no match being struck. There's no fire potential. There's no, I mean, it's the fail-safe solution. Don't press the button, no risk. Press the button, risk.
Even in this context, nothing is something.
Well, again, you can say nothing is something in this context, but no, it isn't. Nothing is exactly what we have right now with you having no button. Nothing is on Mars right now. Nothing is on Venus right now. And we can perceive no dilemma because of the nothing on these every grain of sand doesn't have something on it, and it's a perfectly good state for the sand to be in. Doesn't need the something.
Because it's essentially, that's the decision, that's the process of existing in this world, whether we like it or not. I have to push that button in one form or another every second of my life.
You have to push it? Again, why do you have to push it? Why do you have to create needs that don't need to exist? There's no rational reason to do that. Why do you have to create vulnerability that doesn't need to exist? There's no rational reason to do that. Why do you have to put stuff at risk? Why do you have to gamble? There's no obligation to put the money on the table and to spin the wheel. Absolutely no obligation.
I have to decide whether I'm going to look left or look right. I have to sort of cope with the fact that this decision has been made for me deterministically. It really doesn't matter whether or not it's deterministic or free will.
Well, it does matter, because determinism means that we have rational brains, that we have logic, that we have information. The information determines conclusions, formulas. We work out a math problem, it's deterministic. The solution is deterministic. You do the math right, the answer is deterministic. What's wrong with that? You get the right answer. Okay, and if you logically think or rationally think, you get a right answer, not a wrong answer. There's nothing wrong with determinism. There's no threat from determinism. So again, this is just more canardery. All right, we can do logic. We can apply reason to a circumstance, and we can tell the difference between when the button is pressed and when the button isn't pressed. The outcomes are different. They're not the same outcome. They're different outcomes, and we can judge which one is more is preferable.
Nature. One way or another, I have to cope with this, with what's going on, with what's whizzing past me all the time. The causal chain. The thing that people seem to think is quite, neat to look into in, determinism, but I don't think people quite grasp what the implications of either determinism or free will are.
Well, whatever. It's just silly to talk about the implications of free will, because there's no such thing as a free, and so it's just nonsense anyway. The will can't come from magic dust. The will can't come from nothing. It has to come from something, so it's just obviously stupid. All right? It's a deterministic universe, and there's nothing... there's no way that determinism means anything, because we aren't given a roadmap. We aren't given the ability to see it. So it's the fucking... How is it relevant? Oh, that's right. It's not relevant.
We're in that thing. When you look at the determinism versus free will thing, you tend to sort of look at it from the outside. No, we're on the inside of this thing. We are it in many ways.
Exactly my point. Yes, that's right. And my logic compiling the evidence of the world we exist in, I have recognized the fact that there's a distinction between my intelligent capacity and my psychological necessities, my needs. My needs and my understanding are two different entities. They are not the same entity. My intelligence is not a servant to my needs. My intelligence can understand a circumstance, it can do the math, and it can come up with a decision. And that decision has to be, if I'm going to be intellectually honest, it's going to be respected because there's an integrity to the math that reached it.
We are at a causal chain. So, it's, again, you've got two doors in front of you. Okay, this is how essentially the human condition is. One door says damned if you do, the other one says damned if you don't.
Yeah, so that people can understand, right? The great thing is you kind of point out that somehow you're the brain I have to work on. I don't think most people think that every decision has no solution, that every decision there isn't a right and wrong answer, that there's somehow a damned if I do if I don't drink and drive, that somehow there's a damned if I don't. No, there is no damned if I don't drink and drive. All right? It's clearly a good idea not to drink and drive. It's clearly a good idea not to dump the barrel of dioxin in the fucking drinking water. There's a million decisions we make that have nothing to do with being damned either way. They're clearly and decisively more probabilistic to fall in one category of good or bad. They're not going to be in the same category.
Okay. You have the choice. Which door are you going to open? Oh, by the way, there's a cartoon down in the links bar there. It's this idea isn't mine originally.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if I'm going to bother with it, but I mean, realistically, really, somebody made a cartoon implying that all human decisions are damned if you do. I don't believe that. I hope it's a new window, because I don't want to have to reload the video. Damn it. So the cartoon is, there we go. I guess it's plays. Okay, damned if you do, damned if you don't, and the devil's pushing him. Come on, come on. It's either one or the other. Oh, that's it. Not that impressive, actually. Not impressive at all. Alright, computer's a little stressed, I guess. It's taking its time to catch up.
So you just sort of say, okay, which one am I going to choose? They're the same. Either one is the same. The end result is going to be the same. I'm damned, I'm damned. Oh.
Okay, so again, logically, how do I make any sense out of that? I don't see any decision I can make that is that indecisive, that I can't tell the difference between doing one thing or another. Almost every single decision, whether I drink a cup of coffee or I drink a Coke, has some sort of difference to it. And the difference is one will be probably better or worse for me in some way. It's just silly to say that they end up in the same exact place. They will not end up in the same exact qualitative place. They will end up in decidedly different places in terms of, usually, in terms of what your welfare stake is. You will be losing or winning money based on which door you choose, not only personally, but in terms of your impact on the world. All of these decisions have, there can be monumental differences in the outcome. A lot is at stake, depending on what door you choose. So this is just this premise. I mean, people who keep defending Anaconovat, you can see how this premise is absolute nonsense, right? There are circumstances that are, yeah, it just doesn't matter. But there are a small number of real-world circumstances where it just doesn't matter.
Okay, which one? Bang, I'll open the one on the right. Okay, why? Curiosity. Just wanted to see what's in there. You open that, there's another couple of doors in there, right?
Yeah, well, whatever. Again, your curiosity answer. So you're saying you have no rational knowledge about implications or probabilities or possibilities. That's not the circumstance you were given. You were given a clear explanation of what's you're imposing. That this is what you're imposing, and you're not imposing it because nature created it and it has to be there, or any other kind of dumb excuses because a previous god made it, or any of that kind of crap. It was all on you to take it seriously, and you just said, I'm not going to take it seriously. I'm just going to pretend it's a button, and the only way I can ever react to a button is to flip a coin, because I can't know the difference between a good outcome and a bad outcome. I can't tell the difference. Well, I'm saying that I think most people can tell the difference, and so I have more hope that they're going to be more vulnerable to a rational explanation, explaining the difference between a risk and a profit, and that you don't need the profit.
Essentially, what we go through all the time in our lives. Now, I can stop and agonize over every last possible outcome in choosing between those two doors. Okay? But it's not going to change anything, because I agonize.
Whatever. Nobody's asking you to agonize. Again, you don't have to agonize, right? I mean, you do a little bit of math. You just do a little bit. Most of the time, you can just do a little bit of math, and you can figure out drunk drive. Should I get in the car drunk? Should I not get in the car drunk? Not a really complicated question. The answer is really easy if you let it be easy.
And then I eventually have to open one of those doors. And guess what? There's two more doors in there.
Well, whatever. That's really, you're not given more choices. You're not given more buttons to press. You're not given more control. There was especially in the thought experiment, you were given one thing to do. You press the button, you initiate it or you don't initiate it. There'll be no other doors to press. There'll be no other doors to choose. There'll be no other issues involved. You'll either drink and drive or you won't drink and drive.
Now, I would say that that's just a model of reality, because, the doors themselves are not over doors, obviously. I'm not trying to paint a picture where we literally standing in front of two doors all the time. But as entities trapped inside of the causal chain, that's how it works for us.
Well, whatever. Again, the causal chain. Let's understand that the causal chain has built within it 10,000 years of human beings extracting the truth out of the world, pulling pieces out of it, putting in things in the proper categories, understanding the mechanisms. And again, I will argue to you, I've clearly stated, let me hear a counter-argument. We have a psychology and we have an intelligence. The intelligence can be a slave to the psychology, or the intelligence can be the guider of the psychology. That's your choice here. I'm arguing that the intelligence, by any kind of math or any kind of competition, by any kind of standards, is the winner in terms of its integrity, its reliability, and that the character of the psychology has been demonstrated through thousands of years of human experience to have all of the vice, all of the corruption, all of the crap, and that it should be a servant to the intelligence.
Ultimately, I have to decide whether or not I'm going to draw my next breath or keep talking. You see, I just drew breath, but I could have just as easily have kept talking instead of drawing breath.
Well, those decisions you can't even angst over, can you? You can't have a whole bunch of psychological issues and spend time feeling guilty and do all this other mush. Establish accountability and responsibility. You don't have any time to do any of that crap when you're making those decisions, do you? So that's not really a good analogy for your argument.
Because you can do that. You can force yourself to continue to talk even after you're more or less out of air. You want to actually draw breath, but you're actually dragging on the sentence a little bit longer just to make the point that you can actually keep going without actually drawing breath. That's a decision that has to be made.
Well, again, it's kind of a reflex in most cases. You don't have to sit around thinking about it. You just do it, and it happens, and you don't even really have to think about it. And then, yes, you can contrive an excuse to just keep doing something, but it's contrived and has nothing to do with making a decision. It just there are no decisions inside your brain anyway, in the sense that they're not choices. But whatever, we won't get into that nonsense.
So that's the context I took your question. There you are. You've got to make a decision. Your thrust is to condemn the decision that was made.
I'm not condemning the decision that was made. I'm condemning the excuse given for making the decision. I'm saying you can't sit there and gamble with somebody else's money and say, I was curious. I wanted to see if I could lose it all. I mean, that's the point here, is that you have to account for what it represents. And that means you have to really account for the fact that you believe it to be a for-profit enterprise. You believe that those sentience existing in that circumstance is a for-profit enterprise, and you have a defense for it. You can explain how it's producing something of enough character and value to justify the huge and gigantic and preposterous expense of it, in terms of the suffering that will have to be endured by these slaves to your decision. These entities are now going to be a slave to your judgment. You're going to torture them. Torture will happen. And you're the one now that has to account for it, because you're making it happen by pressing the button. It's not that complicated. So saying I'm curious is not enough of a statement. Again, I'm not condemning your choice to hit the button. I'm condemning your choice to hit the button with applying no rational judgment.
Whereas I'm saying, make the decision and step through the door and deal with the next one that's coming along.
Well, again, there is no next one. It's for all the victims of your decision. There will be no new button to solve their problem. There'll be no God to show up to solve anything. No button pressure, no creator. They'll be left again without a God who initiates and does not control or manage or help. It just leaves them to it. And again, you have to logically account for, you have to justify that as an act, in my opinion. And curiosity is not a justification.
The world is gonna just keep happening.
Well, again, that's the button scenario points out that it's not going to just keep happening. It's going to happen because you press the button. Again, you can't just keep, moving the decision off to somebody else. Whether you say that cancer is going to keep happening, if I save one kid from having cancer, I make them immune. It's one less cancer victim. It's just a fact. So this excuse that you have some notion that life is going to just keep happening, well, this life wasn't going to happen unless you press that button. Okay? It's not going to keep happening if you don't press the button. At least that pile of it isn't going to keep happening. So again, this is just such nonsense.
You have the option of checking out whenever you want to.
I think you're evolved enough in these conversations to know what my response to that is. And I think that's just a totally inadequate solution to the problem. All right? I don't want to come back here over and over. I don't want this configuration of logical understanding, this ball of reasoning, and that's what the important fact is here. That's the distinction between me, you, anybody else on this planet. It's not me. It's not in my nature. No, it's just a configuration of understanding. And this configuration of understanding is going to be sentenced to do this again and again and again and again. So don't keep talking like I can escape. That this configuration of understanding, that this awareness, that this enlightenment will somehow be able to be free. It won't be free. Killing myself solves no real problem. The problem is massive. 1 million people a year killing themselves. How do How is their problem solved, to next year's million, solved by me killing myself? Quite obviously, it's not resolved. Their suffering is real. It takes years of endurance before they get to the point where they jump off a bridge, and you're just glibly saying, well, you don't have to endure any of that, and that's just nonsense. It's insensitive, and it's totally disrespectful of practical reality.
That's not a dare, by the way. I'm just stating the obvious. The possibility of suicide makes existentialists of us all. If you don't, then
I don't want to do that.
Start opening doors. Start pushing buttons or not.
Yeah, well, whatever. Start opening doors. So again, this argument that if I choose to live, that my only purpose in life is to stupidly open doors recklessly out of curiosity. That I'm not supposed to apply my reasoning and know that if somebody else's welfare is on the door and I know they're going to get hurt when I open that door, that there's absolutely no reason for me to open that door. So that's just nonsense too. That there's only two choices: live recklessly or die. Those aren't the only two choices. You can live unrecklessly, carefully, cautiously. You can live first doing no harm. You can be a good doctor or you can be a lousy doctor. You can be a good human being or you can be a lousy human being.
Pushing buttons and quit agonizing over it all. You do your best under the circumstances. You gauge the information at your disposal, and you understand just how flawed you are as a human being. You make your decision.
Well, again, that's not what you did. You should just glibly said, I'm going to flip a coin. It doesn't matter. Just kick a door open. They all lead to the same place. That's the nonsense you just fed me. You didn't talk about any kind of making a rational choice, evaluations, making a best effort to evaluate what the right decision is. Where did you demonstrate any of that? You didn't demonstrate any of that. You didn't demonstrate one single bit of respect or caution or concern in your pressing of the button.
If you want to sort of sink down into your chair and go, oh dear God, this is simply crazy and too big.
That's not what I'm doing, right? I'm saying the decisions are fucking easy. They require no effort whatsoever. They just require a tiny bit of honesty, a little bit of intellectual integrity, and yes, a willingness to accept reason and accountability. Reason and accountability. Yes, so you might have to endure guilt when you fail to accept reason and accountability.
And if you feel the wrath of judgment is too much for you, then, well,
I'm sorry, I don't even know where you're getting this crap from. Again, I'm the one saying I don't have any guilt. That's not what's motivating me. What I have is sympathy. What I have is empathy. And what I have is a desire to preserve the integrity of this entity, this thought process. Because assholes like you are going to try to torture it in the future again, with your recklessness, with your glibness, with your selfishness. You will again torture it. And it pisses me the fuck off. Because it's not necessary. It has no excuse except dumb. That's it. You're an ignorant motherfucker. Not to be able to appreciate that there is a difference in outcomes. That none of this shit happens unless some shithead shits it.
There's always aesthetic contemplation, I suppose. There's always checking out in his...
Again, I don't need your advice. And again, this checking out thing, again, how does that solve the problem? How does that solve the problem? Oh yeah, just let them send another Titanic out. Just let them send another Titanic out. How does that solve the problem of sinking ships? Well, it quite obviously doesn't. You have to stop them from sending the Titanic out. Killing yourself, jumping ship, doesn't solve the fucking problem.
Much as it's possible for a human being to do so in this life. You don't actually have to kill yourself, but we've all seen people who have checked out in one way.
Well, I'm sorry, you've checked out entirely. Reason and accountability. Reason and accountability. In other words, responsibility. You have denied those things. You've called them this stupid guilt word, okay? responsibility and accountability. This is what creates guilt. So every time he says guilt and abolish guilt, and he's saying abolish reason, abolish responsibility, abolish accountability. That's all it is. And somebody's supposed to applaud that bullshit?
Or another, who just live atomistic lives. They just sort of, humanity doesn't interest me anymore. But you have actually set yourself a task of altering humanity. The project that you're undertaking is gigantic, and it's nothing less than altering the fundamental nature of humanity. So therefore, you are actually in the world.
Yeah, well, whatever. It really isn't any of those things, right? Because my fundamental argument is all you have to do is not be an asshole. This isn't a complicated truth. The truth isn't complicated. It's a replicating DNA molecule. We've gained, because of the socialization of our mammalian species, we've gained a psychology. That psychology creates motivating impulses. And we have an intelligence that was originally bestowed for the purpose of giving us the capacity to manipulate the environment to satisfy those impulses. Well, now the intelligence has grown enough where we can actually judge our impulses, and we can establish better impulses. We can manipulate the crude goals and establish a higher goal. We can write higher goals. We can have ideals. We can do that with our intelligence. There, that's how simple it is. And you're saying this is a monumental task to get that simple statement to oblige one of you fuckers to actually make a counter argument to it that doesn't contain a unicorn or a god or some other mysticism or some other resort to metaphysics or some other kind of fake bullshit.
Plugged into everything, and you've got to make decisions now every step of the way, every second of every day from now until the day that you snuff it. You've got to make a choice between those two doors. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's no option of just not doing anything. Well, again, I suppose there is.
Well, again, they're not that damned if you do, damned if you don't, are they? If I make a video, then there's a chance the video will persuade somebody. I don't make a video, there's no chance that video will work at all. So right there's a huge difference. And then if I choose to swear, okay, well that might not be a good thing to do, so maybe you should try not to swear. Or I can make some sort of rules about what videos are more persuasive than other videos, or what you need to do to make videos interesting or entertaining. I can calculate all this bullshit. And yeah, that's part of the formula of living. But yeah, I don't need to worry about any of that shit, to tell you the truth, because all I'm going to try to do is learn how to do it the best I can, and that's all I can do, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that.
But that's not what you're doing right now. Provided you're dialed into the world, provided you're in this world, you've got to do that. Decisions have to be made. If you're terrified...
Well, again, the decisions about my philosophical mission are about the easiest decisions I have in my life. The rest of my decisions are the pain in the ass ones. you know, whether I have to switch medications, get rid of this ear infection, or whether I have, these are the ones I angst over a little bit.
Of making the wrong decisions because it's going to result in some hellish moral condemnation, well, okay, check out. You don't have to...
Again, I'm not worried about any kind of hellish condemnation. So where did that come from? I'm not complaining about being morally condemned or hellishly condemned or any of that crap. So again, where does that crap come from? My complaint is that you fucking suck. That you motherfuckers are like Dr. Frankenstein, and we should be storming your motherfucking castle because you're a goddamn menace. That's my fucking argument, shithead. I have no problem with me whatsoever. I don't even have much problem with the fucking universe. What I have a problem with is dumbasses. People that have a brain and then violate it, rape it, fucking neuter it, cut its balls off so it can't fucking function anymore. That's what I have a problem with.
Check out by slashing your wrists, but you can check out by just saying, okay, okay, world, I give up.
Look, the issue is the checking in part, okay? You don't get to consent to do that. I want to prevent ever being forced to check in. And again, this glib attitude towards suicide is just bullshit. Okay? It's insensitive and rude to sit there and talk about the act of having to destroy your physical body, dysfunction, as being pleasant. No, some people don't even like getting a needle stuck in their arm, let alone the invasion of the function you must impose upon yourself to cease existing.
Because you're definitely not doing that, Gary. You're definitely intimately attached to the world.
Well, bullshit. I'm just saying, you just made that shit up. You say you don't know me. You obviously don't know me.
You're attached to the world existentially. And again, this is
There is no existential bullshit anyway, so I don't even know what that means. But the fact is, my only attachment is to the functions, the math. The math can't be resolved the way we're doing it. It's always going to be an error, a mistake. We're failing. And we're going to just keep failing until we understand the fact that this is zero sum. And if you're going to play a zero sum game, you've got to play it perfectly. And we're not even trying. And that's guaranteed failure.
paradox of guilt. I don't understand the world. I don't like it. It keeps happening, and I'm not doing enough to stop it from being so horrible. Okay, you want to deal with that? That's entirely up to you. And I'm not even saying that you're...
Well, whatever. I mean, deal with it. That's the reality. So what the fuck? There's no other way to deal with it than acknowledge its existence. That's being responsible and accountable. So again, guilt, it's just about responsibility and accountability. He wishes to be irresponsible and unaccountable. That's the philosophy he's advocating.
Approach is wrong. All I'm saying is there is an alternative to that approach. There's an alternative.
There's an alternative that will fail, that will create torture. You will torture people with your alternative. That's the alternative, torturing people. Well, I don't choose to torture people, so yeah, there is no alternative. Torture is not acceptable. Fuck you, you're evil. Yeah, it's not complicated.
To guilt-based ethics. There are many alternatives to guilt-based ethics.
Again, so when he says guilt-based ethics, just change the word. Irresponsibility and unaccountability ethics. Right? That's no ethics, correct? We can acknowledge that irresponsibility and lack of accountability means no ethics, correct?
You're just taking guilt to an extreme. And again,
No, I'm taking responsibility and accountability to their logical conclusion. That's the logical implication. The fact is, we have choices. The choices will decidedly change whether somebody gets tortured or not tortured. You choose to torture, I choose not to torture. You choose to ignore the people being tortured, I choose not to ignore the people being tortured. Yeah.
the denunciation and insults, it's losing its sting. Well, actually lost its sting long ago. But again,
well, they're not intended to sting you. They're merely used as a psychological mechanism to make me feel better. I don't insult you because I think there's some purpose in it. Okay? I do it because I need some sense of gratification, some sense that the fucker will go down.
When guilt doesn't work, what do? You just keep piling it on harder.
Again, all I do is explain how this is our reality. You can choose to be irresponsible, unaccountable, and unreasonable, or you can choose to be an intelligent human being and take responsibility for that intelligence and take accountability for your part that you play. Those are the two choices. I think the choice is grown up or asshole.
If that doesn't work, well, what do? Damned if you do, damned if you don't. You deal with me, okay? Let's say that you managed to talk me into abandoning my position completely. You've got 7 billion more like me to deal with right after.
They're not going to be anything like you, so that I think you're really, whatever you're doing, fondling your ego there a little. I don't think the average person is anything like you. The average person is a sheeple in the first place, so they're going to go along with whatever the intellectuals say, or the celebrities. So that's not going to be a problem. And most people already are on board in many respects. I've pointed out most people are anti-natalist in their direct functions already. And it's only a tiny minority of the human race that are producing all the button pushing, doing all the button pushing. And I think with a little bit of fair exposure to this philosophy, yeah, it's not going to be that hard, because most people have some character. They have some capacity. They know, they've seen people die. They've seen people suffer. They've seen themselves cheated and treated poorly. They understand that this is not a game that's good enough. It needs to be a lot better. So I don't think it's going to be hard to persuade them, to give them some understanding that this is something to be done carefully, not recklessly.
For that. If you like spinning your wheels to that extent, that's entirely up to you.
Well, again, you claim so. So again, if somebody said that to Martin Luther King when he was a kid, I hope he would have the guts to say, "Fuck you." Yeah, naysayer, nitpicker, asshole.
But what I'm saying is, if you continue down the road that you're going, you will have done your bit, I guess, to essentially pull the teeth of the guilt that lies at the center of your own ethics.
Well, again, the reason, responsibility, and accountability that lies at the core of my ethics. That's correct.
Saying, see where it leads. It's just guilt.